Hello and welcome to Catholic Owen Live. This is the Friday show. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Brooke Joyner, your host, and this is Catholic Owen Live. So the Friday show, so excited you're here with me today. It is our Founder Friday, so really a fun episode, a fun show to be a part of, and it's sorry, I'm just double checking, making sure we're live everywhere. We are good. Yes, so we made it to Friday. It's the first Friday of Lent, and I'm just honored to be here with you. Thank you for joining me. Today's show, I've got a really fun lineup of topics to discuss. Friday is fun because we can cover a whole array of topics. Can share a little bit about our journey of building Catholic Owned, and some of the great people and things that happen and people I talk to and experiences I'm having, and I just get to talk to you about those. So thank you for being here. I'm just going to kick off by wishing you again a wonderful first Friday of Lent. As we know, we had Ash Wednesday this week. Let me know in the comments, what kind of ashes did you get? Did you get the full cross? Did you get the sprinkle? How did it go? I was super lucky because I got a whole full cross. Father just did a great job. My husband even took a photo. He said it was like a perfect little cross of ashes. So I'd love to hear what you got. There have been some really fun reels that people have been posting about the different structures and shapes and everything that everybody gets. So that's fun. The second topic, I just wanted to give a little shout out to TEPEG Leadership. This week I had the honor of beginning their program. So it's an 18-week program, and it is all around forming Catholic lay leaders. So it's a great fit for people across different professions, different expertise. You don't have to be a business owner. The goal is to have Catholic lay leaders throughout civil society, particularly in the political sphere, in board service, leadership roles within organizations, nonprofits, for-profits, the school board, those types of things. And it's a great program. I began yesterday. Yesterday was the first session of the 2026 class. And I just have to say, I am so impressed. The group it's a decent sized group of people, but the caliber of the people in the group it was blowing me away. I think more than 70%, something like that, had a master's degree or more in terms of education. And these Catholics are working in every major company that you can imagine, doing incredibly important and difficult work that I myself couldn't do, of course. So my biggest takeaway, I had some other takeaways, but my biggest one I'll share today is it is a very high caliber program. So I feel honored to be included, to be part of the program. And so thank you to TEPEG Leadership for including me. It's really great. And if you are a Catholic professional, a Catholic leader, or you want to be a Catholic leader, I really encourage you to check out the program for next year. One other thing I did this week, I had the pleasure of being a guest on a show called Kingdom Builders with Lisa Theus. Lisa, I hope I'm not saying your name wrong. But Lisa is wonderful. She asked me some really, really interesting questions. The reason I love interviews is because they invite you to look at yourself from other people's perspective. I think we would all like to say, oh, well, I know myself, or I know how I'm coming across to other people, or I know what other people think about me, but we don't. That's totally wrong. But so that's why I like interviews. I get to hear from other people, what they think about this post or that idea or that aspect of our mission or our vision. And Lisa asked me about vocation. And so that's kind of the topic that I want to dive a little deeper into today. So, Lisa, thank you for that beautiful interview and for prompting me to reflect on this more deeply this week. And I do think during Lent is a beautiful time to reflect on vocation, especially as leaders, but really for everyone. It's important to think about. So, what I was speaking about with Lisa in regards to vocation is that, first and foremost, our first, vocation is as a child of God. So we begin there, of course. My second vocation after being a faithful Catholic is to be the wife of Mateo. So that is, in terms of vocation, that's technically my primary vocation is as wife to Mateo. And you guys know I have the best husband. He's wonderful. So I am so grateful for my vocation as his wife. And my second vocation is as mother to our children. And I really have been reflecting on this one more lately. The children are getting older, but it's something that, and this ties into the next one as well. But being a mother is so much of who I am. And it is something that I cannot stop being in any context. So as a wife, I'm also the mother of Mateo's children. So that informs a lot, right? So the vocations are all interconnected, and that's kind of where I'm taking this. So my third vocation, technically my fourth, so first being Catholic, second Mateo's wife, third mother of our children, and then fourth would be my vocation as a business leader. And this is one that people can find a little bit controversial. And Lisa's question this week really prompted me to share more about this because a while back I had done a series of LinkedIn posts about this topic, about the topic of women being able to have a vocation in the business world as a Catholic. And it was it was a multi-part series. It's a complicated topic. And in this series, I focused on the history of work in the family. I focus on what the church actually teaches about work and the family, and how the vision that people have today of a quote-unquote traditional family is distorted. And so that series was really interesting. And so I wanted to kind of circle back, close the loop on it a little bit, and elaborate, beyond the theoretical and look at what the vocation of a business leader can be as a Catholic wife and mother. And share that with you. I hope that's encouraging for you. If not, no worries. You can let me know in the comments. But this is what I have found. And I pray that this will be encouraging to others who are navigating this. So, in our world, there's very much the theoretical idea of what is ideal or what is holier or what a family should look like or what the role of a woman should be. And there's this false notion that if a woman does something other than be a wife and mother, that she's somehow deficient at being a wife and mother. And it's just so nonsensical. It's honestly In theory, we can build the argument and see, and there are plenty of people on the internet and in real life who think that that is just genuinely impossible. But there's such a big difference between theoretical ideas and hard-lived reality. And that's kind of where I want to talk about today. Vocation as a business leader is a real and noble vocation. It involves a mission that God gives to you. It involves skills that you have either acquired, developed, or in some cases just been given by God. Your God-given talents and abilities, the intelligence and reasoning ability. Just there are so many things that God just puts in us that we just have, whether or not we want them, right? I think there's probably something about ourselves we all love and something about ourselves we wish we could change. Those are our God-given traits. So, and that is true for every human being. Every human being has those things, those traits given to them by God. So when we talk about the vocation of the business leader, they typically have some of those traits. They have the skills and abilities that it takes to do the mission that God has given to them. I think that's true for all mission, but in the context of a business leader, the mission is going to have something to do with commerce. There's something that you're doing in the marketplace to create value, help other people through the creation of that value, whether through products or services. And then you obviously profit financially, and then you turn around and buy things from other people doing the same. So the free market is a fundamentally good thing. Business leaders are called to evangelize and fulfill their mission through the marketplace. And again, the church tells us that's a good and noble vocation. It's not somehow less than being a mother or being a father or being a spouse or being a priest or religious. It's another vocation. It is usually secondary to one of the others. But in and of itself, it is not somehow deficient of holiness and goodness. And it's not something that should be hidden away or that we should be ashamed of, whether we're men or women. So that's the vocation of the business leader. And like I said, it's oftentimes secondary to our other vocations. So for me, I'm first a wife, and then I'm a mother, and then I'm a business leader. And, now that I've kind of established that the vocation of the business leader is a good thing, it is a true calling, it is something from God, using the skills that God has given that person. I want to talk a little bit about how that has looked for me. Again, hopefully this will be an encouragement and inspiration for someone wrestling with this out there, especially ladies that, we oftentimes hear, we're sort of guilted or shamed if we work or if we have an idea that we want to pursue. And we're sometimes, kind of made to feel like the mom guilt, right? I hope I can help free you from that, because the vocations are not mutually exclusive. I think one of the reasons that sometimes they are treated as mutually exclusive is it's sort of this give and take mentality that if I give time to, bucket A, I'm taking it from bucket B. But the thing is, there's this assumption there that everything has to come from the mother. There's this assumption that, everything has to come specifically from the mom. And this worldview that the mom has to do everything, all of that pressure is on her, that worldview diminishes what is, quite frankly, quite possibly, gifts that God has given that mother. But it also puts an unfair burden that, to be honest, one person is not created to do everything for, 1 to 12 other people. It doesn't even make sense. So it's a very distorted view. Um, and it is, like I said, it's a plus and minus type of system that doesn't actually make sense, because there's such a thing as synergy. There are occasions where the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Pardon me. Um, and parents being able to fulfill their vocations in their workplace can actually add and multiply what is possible for the family. And so it doesn't have to be either or. For me, I would just share what has been the reality for me. Again, hopefully that will encourage and inspire others to find what really works for them and their family, because a lot of things can work for great Catholic families. First and foremost, yes, the model of the father working outside of the home, the mother being at home, bearing and raising the children, that model can work, but it is extremely important that the father not be away for too long, because one person cannot do everything. And the family was not designed that way. The family was not designed for the father to be away for 16 hours a day, for the mother to be slaving away, doing literally 4 jobs at home, and for the children to endure that familial separation. That is not an ideal situation. Can it work for the short term? Yes. Are there families that make it work? Yes. But I do think it's good to stop romanticizing this model, because it can genuinely harm families. I hear from women all the time who are suffering, and they put on a strong face for their husband. They really, quote unquote, woman up, which is an absurd term. And if you're offended by that, I'm sorry. But they are suffering. These wives are suffering, you guys. And I'm not going to call anybody out. I'm not going to mention any names. But women who are thriving, being separated from their husbands and doing every single thing in the home, they're suffering. So, gentlemen, check on your wives. Seriously. It's a dysfunction. It's not good. That separation has a price. All of the models I'll talk about have a price. So that one has, the mother pays the highest price for that, and the children pay the highest price for that. So I want to get away from romanticizing this view, because it can really harm families. Now, if your family is the 1% who's thriving in that familial separation, God bless you. But as a model, it is not ideal, and there are people suffering from it. The second model is both parents working full time and the children going to public school. This is obviously the majority of our country today. And that can be for a lot of reasons. We can all discuss those. But there, the familial separation is still at play. So this creates a lot of problems, similar to the family separation of the first model I discussed, but it also creates additional problems. So the family unit, as we all know, is going to suffer for that. Because why? Because the family being, say there's 4 people, they all go in 4 separate directions all day, every day, an hour or 2 together at night is not a lot of time. So there are prices to pay for that model. And I do think we can all agree that our culture, we see the fruit of that model in the culture, and it's a high price that we're paying for that. I'm going to just talk about two more models. Obviously, there are probably an infinite number of intricacies of ways to make these things work, but the third model is a combination, right? So the third model is either one parent working full-time, one parent working part-time, or having a side business, something that they do even just as a creative outlet. Maybe they do social media, maybe they're creating things, maybe they're coaching, they're doing something on the side, while still being the primary caregiver. And I think this is a great model. This is something that works for a lot of families. But again, it has a price, right? Because then the primary caregiver is taking on this additional responsibility of this other thing. Even if he or she enjoys that, it's still something more on their plate. And to mitigate the costs of this model, both parents need to be involved with the children and with the care of the children and the care of the house, the household, essentially. And then the fourth model, and this is my favorite model, this is what makes the most sense for us. So I did my Friday show last week advocating for this model, and that is business ownership amongst the spouses. So family business ownership is another option that a lot of times people don't look at. But I really believe it is the path forward for Catholics to retain ownership and be the most involved in their children's lives as possible. But there are costs to it, right? Namely, risk. The biggest cost of running a business together is risk. You assume all the risk. And when you have a family, it's not easy. So I understand why this is maybe a lesser taken path. And there are many challenges and stresses that come along with it. So again, every model has its costs. But within the last two models too, I would just say, like, you have the option of homeschooling, you have the option of co-ops or hybrid programs, and then you have the option of private Catholic school. And again, any of those within the one full-time, one part-time employee or business ownership together, you have costs and you have benefits that you have to weigh. And all of that to say, any one of these models can be okay. And any one of these models can produce good Catholic families. Any one of those models can raise saints. Any one of those models can raise saints and make saints out of us, because they all come with tremendous sacrifice. They all come with the need for properly ordered living and priorities. And they all come with their own set of unique challenges and opportunities. So I want to encourage people to avoid romanticizing any one of these models, because the danger of choosing one, and again, I outlined 4 overarching models. There are obviously, unlimited variations of each of those 4, of each one of those 4. But the problem with romanticizing any one of them is that we can undermine any other vocation that people have outside of their marriage and their families. And that's regarding the vocation of the business leader or Catholic leadership, like Tepeyac leadership advocates for. When we put people into boxes that the church doesn't actually force us into, we are risking and the presumptuousness of assuming what God has called other people to do. And I think that's spiritually really dangerous. So I encourage people to examine your own heart, examine what God has asked you to do, and Be courageous to do what he's asked you to do. That can look a lot of different ways. Whether you are a man or a woman, you could be called to the religious life, to marriage, to parenthood, to business, to be an employee, to evangelize within your place of work. That's a perfectly valid way to live out our baptismal calling. It's really fine. And especially if that's what you have to do to support your family, it's really fine. The important thing is to find what works for you and for your family, obviously within the bounds of what the church actually teaches. So this is not a free for all. Of course, I'm not advocating for that. But what I am advocating for is not being afraid to do what God has asked you to do. That is the way that I live. My husband with me, our children with us. That is what we do. And sometimes from the outside, that can look, people say a lot of crazy things. And it's okay. It's okay. Because they don't know, and where this matters, for me, I objectively, I'm not going to change my mission or what God is. I'm not going to ignore what God has asked me to do because of what other people, even other well-meaning Catholics, say. That's just not going to affect me. But for other people, it really can. And like I said, I hear from ladies particularly. I also hear from husbands who they know their wives are struggling. And, they're thinking something is wrong with my wife because she's not fitting into this box. She's in the box and she's absolutely losing her mind. These are the things I hear and I understand. But when we put people in these situations and then we expect them to, they will put themselves in these situations when they feel expected to be in that box, in that situation. And those moms in this example, they would, be tempted to ignore what God has asked them to do. And that is what really motivates me to talk about this, not for myself, but because other people would put down their dreams and their calling and what they think God is wanting them to do, whether that be for spiritual purposes, to provide for their family, to make a difference, to help. Infinite possible things that God could ask people to do and reasons why he would ask them. And I don't want to see people be afraid or be guilted out of doing what God has asked them to do because they don't fit into this romanticized box of one way of growing a healthy and happy and holy Catholic family. So that's kind of my motivation for sharing this. I hope this is helpful. The truth is you can be a good wife, you can be a good mother, and you can lead a business. It really is about how you make it work for your life. For us, what that looks like on the logistics side is I work from home. I work a lot. For a season, and that's okay. But my kids come in and hug me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day. They wouldn't have that if I was working at an office. So, in exchange for me being with them all day, every day, instead, or the alternative, which is me working at an office somewhere else, I work from home. So I'm here. If someone is crying, I can quickly come and assist. Obviously, when the babies are little, I can nurse the babies from home. That's really not a big deal. So for us, that's how we make it work. It could look totally different for you, and that's okay. So the point is I just want to encourage folks to find what works for them. Don't be afraid to find what works for you. Hard-lived reality is usually the best way to find what works, rather than looking at these romanticized opinions on the internet and amongst fellow Catholic circles. Because the truth is, being a spouse is hard, being a parent is hard, and making a living is hard. And it can look any one of a million ways as long as we are holding fast to our faith and doing things the right way. Which thankfully the church doesn't prescribe exactly what the day-to-day has to look like in order to become a saint. So that is my what I wanted to share about vocation. I hope that's a word of encouragement for you to pursue your vocation. Be assured of my prayers for you. That is going to wrap up the show. Just want to make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, I think next week the shows are going to be great. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Central. Come back here wherever you're watching and join me. Monday is kind of like Monday monologue. So I have kind of like a little video essay, a little bit more development of the ideas surrounding building the new Catholic economy. It's the most academic of the three. It is the one I prepare the most for, so it's more about the development of ideas. So the Monday show is all about big ideas. Wednesday, I will have a wonderful guest with me. I can't wait for you to meet our guest, and we will be discussing what she does and how that plays a role in the Catholic economy. She has some really unique experiences to bring to the table. And then Friday, I'll be live just like today, Founder Friday, a little bit of devotions, a little bit of peek behind the curtain, a little bit of week in the life kind of content. So I hope you'll join me for that as well. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.